There's only one radio station that connects you to DePaul University, Chicago, and the world.
Hey, you in my class? I am today.
It's Radio DePaul, Chicago's college connection.
Welcome back to the lineup here on Radio DePaul, Chicago's college connection. Eli Hershkovich alongside Tom Bostwick, and we're talking Blackhawks. A tough loss in the shootout last night, 5-4. And now we have Scott Powers on from ESPNChicago.com. Scott, are you with us?
Yep. How you guys doing?
Good.
Yeah, we're doing terrific as always. Now we have Tom back in the studio, ready to talk Blackhawks with you. We didn't have him before winter break, but he's ready to talk some hockey. And we were reading your article over the break here, the 5 observations from the Hawks' wings, and the one key that stood out to me was Patrick Kaner can't catch a break. Talking about how he had the 2 assists, but he had a couple opportunities to score a goal last night right in front of the net, just couldn't get one to go. What have you seen in Kaner's game? Maybe some confidence, lacking of confidence, even though he's having a terrific season so far.
Yeah, I don't know if it's confidence. Some of it's bad luck. He's still producing points, so it's not the end of the world. So, off of his one shot yesterday, Shaw's opportunity came to score. So I don't know if it's that big of a deal. Obviously Blackhawks are rolling a little bit more when he's scoring, as he did throughout November and December, and you'd like to be, more in that pace. But some of it's just opportunities. I think defenses are playing a little bit more. I think he's adjusting a little bit to having Saad and Shaw. He's still looking for some space and create those chances on net. I think he had a little bit more room with Handzus and Versteeg, and the lines played well together, but it's finding those opportunities. I talked to one of the guys that works him out during the summer and the off season, this guy named Daryl Belfry, and they've talked a lot about it too. This has been, I think, his 3rd longest slump of his career, and just sticking to a lot of things that he did while he was playing really well. Looking for openings, finding some ice to use, and kind of maybe create some more off the rush, and get those chances flowing. So, he's still producing. Some of the numbers are pretty good, and, he'd obviously like to be scoring, but I think he's doing a lot of things that are getting him back on track, and I think as those guys get a little bit more comfortable, those opportunities will, he'll be able to generate some more.
Well, absolutely. I think Kane just has way too much talent to be in the bit of a rut he's in right now. But flipping to the other side of the puck, looking at Corey Crawford, we were talking last week about, I think the Hawks are right in the middle of goals against their average, and Crawford's been up and down this season. Obviously, the injuries haven't helped, but you mentioned, his stock had been rising. Two great games against the Ducks, and then the Bruins, 2 of the top teams in the NHL. And then he laid a little bit of a dud last night in the Wings against the Red Wings, but he didn't allow a goal after the second period up until the shootout. So, what are you seeing in Crawford right now? That is it confidence coming back from the injury, or what do you think it is?
Yeah, I don't know. I think he's been pretty confident because he even thinks that he played pretty well prior to his injury, and the numbers indicate a little bit something different. Just the consistency hasn't been there. When you look at what he did last year, he it was a few goals a game, or he had a few shutouts, and just really contained opponents. His save percentage was pretty high, and he was pretty good against the power play, and overall his numbers were great. There's a lot of more of advanced statistics that I've been getting into and trying to check out, and it's sort of like baseball. They have a quality start percentage, and there's another one they need probably a different name for, but it's called really bad starts, RBS, and he kind of stayed away from those last year. He was either really, really good or was okay, but it wasn't really bad. And this season, he's kind of dipped into that the worst category a little bit more, and not as consistent. And I thought he played pretty well against the Bruins and against the Ducks. And 3 of his last 4 starts have been quality starts, and he hadn't been that consistent even before the injury. So I thought he was maybe getting back on track. And then looking at the game last night, I wouldn't say any of the goals were really soft. But when you give up 4 goals a game, there's some fingers going to be pointed. And, he had a problem with the glove side a little bit on a few of those. And, the defense had some troubles last night, but Crawford's got to be, slightly better than that. So, a lot of people are calling for Ranta, and this is kind of the city's way of always wanting the backup rather than the starter. But Ranta's numbers have actually been worse than Crawford's as of late. And, I think when you look at Ranta, he was a savior in that he came in, and when they had some problems with backups, that he really stepped in and allowed them to continue on when Crawford was hurt. And But his overall play hasn't been amazing. He's been reliable enough, and he's been good, and I think his potential is pretty good. He's still learning that game and making some of the adjustments from a different ice surface from playing in Europe. But the answer is in Ronta. I think, for the Blackhawks to win the Cup, they need Crawford to be consistent. He's got to be the guy.
Comparing sports here in Chicago a little bit, Antti Ranta's role might have been a little bit like DJ Augustine for the Bulls, stepping in for Kirk Heinrich and even for a Derrick Rose and playing very well off the bench and a big pickup for the Bulls. Obviously, Ranta in the Blackhawks system, but again, talking about Corey Crawford, a lot of plays, and again, you talked about it, they might not have been the goals, might not have been his fault just because the defense, a little bit of lack of defense as well, but Duncan Keith definitely stepped up his defense after the first two periods. Switching back over to some offense, though, Scott, Marian Hossa, you brought up him on your Stock Watch article. 6 goals now, 6 goals and 2 assists, I believe, in his last 6 games. What has been the resurgence in Marian Hossa's confidence that you've seen? And we keep talking about confidence, but what is it with Marian Hossa over these last 6 games or so?
Yeah, he just looks sharp. He looks healthy, and I think early in the season you saw a lot of this out of Hossa, and then he had some of his back problems and slowed down a little bit. And he's been pretty good for most of the season. A lot of shots on net and generating chances, and now finally converting some of those. And he's possessing the puck and he's carrying it into space, and he just seems like he's a really nice jump in his step and getting around opponents, and he's obviously still doing those little things where he's knocking pucks free and creating some takeaways. And that line for the most part all season, it just seems like they've all been taking turns, and right now it's Hossa's, and Sharp and Taves are finding him, and he's getting to the net, and he's still got a pretty good shot. So he just I know he just turned 35 last week, but he looks just really good right now, really just on top of his game. And I think you will always have that worry about him if he's going to break down, especially with that back, that being kind of a persistent problem. But he's been good, and he definitely he looks young and fresh. And the Olympics coming up, I think him coming out of Olympics, another guy the Blackhawks and Quenneville will watch and limit his minutes. And Quenneville said that Hossa's gotten better at the idea of if he's tired or needs a day off, he asks for it now and they give it to him. So I think that he's playing some of his best hockey. He's been really good for the last few weeks.
Absolutely, and looking at a player who Quenneville's been mixing and matching up here on these second and third lines, trying to figure out the right formula. And you mentioned Andrew Shaw getting moved into that second line, and how he's definitely benefited from it. Definitely starting to play a little better. But last night, obviously, missed a crucial shot there in the shootout. And with the small sample size you have of Shaw on the second line, do you think he can handle this increased workload? Being the scrapper that he is, sort of the timely guy for the Hawks last year, now asking him to shoulder a little bigger workload.
Yeah, I don't know if this is still a temporary solution or not. He's been good. That whole line's been pretty good. They seem to kind of mix and match well. Saad's a pretty strong force and get to the net, and Kane's obviously Kane and Shaw's just he seems he's getting those loose pucks, he's creating some chances, and then he's able to finish around the net when others miss, and being that having a net front presence. So I think with him sometimes the face-offs can be a concern, and he's kind of fluctuated there, but he's done okay, and he's defense responsible too, so I think that's key with that too. That he can provide that angle. I don't know what's going to happen with that line. I think they're going to keep on going until it doesn't work. And Hanzus has kind of struggled a little bit on the third line. He was struggling on the second, and I wonder if down the road that you look at someone like Teuvo Teravainen, who may still come up to this team in April and be someone, maybe he's someone that moves in that second line center, or if he's not needed, then Shaw remains there. But I also think Brandon Perry, another guy who played that second line center role early in the season, I think he may get another shot with the Blackhawks. I'm not sure if it'll be in that capacity, but I think Hanzus might need some time off after Olympics, and guys like Morin and Perry might get a chance to come up back up as well. But for now, Shaw's been good, and I think he's a little bit of a resurgence after he struggled a little bit on the third line, a few weeks ago.
I was going to ask you about the Minnesota Wild game coming up here tonight, but since Tom brought up Andrew Shaw, I wanted to ask you about him being placed into the shootout role, trying to bring it to the 7th round of the shootout. Do you believe Andrew Shaw should have been placed in that role, or why wasn't Brandon Saad or another guy, a better offensive player, put in that position to try to tie up the shootout and bring it to another round?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't. I usually don't analyze the shootout stuff so much. I just when Kane doesn't score, I'm a little bewildered. But aside from that, it's a bit of a crapshoot sometimes. It's just there's some luck involved, and the Blackhawks have obviously struggled a little bit in the shootout and even the overtimes. And I know Quinville mentioned last night that he thought maybe some teams are trying to push it from beyond the overtime to the shootout because they feel like they have a better chance of winning that. So, I think the one area of the Blackhawks need to make sure that they're good on those 4-on-4 situations because when it comes to playoffs, the shootouts won't matter, but overtime games will. So, the fact they haven't won a game in overtime this season, it's a little strange considering they seem to be pretty clutch. But I have to watch a little bit more closely and see if the opponents are trying, to slow it down and make sure that the game's going to shootout. So. There might be some sort of reference point with that, but I don't know. I don't know why he went with Shaw. I think Quinville just sometimes has a hunch and goes with it, and it was probably something as simple as that.
Right, and do you have a hunch of who will start in net tonight for the Blackhawks? Corey Crawford, will Quinville put Crawford back in net against the Wild, or will it be Antti Ranta and Crawford will get the rest? And do you have any keys for tonight's game?
Yeah, I think Ranta will be in the net. Quinville kind of hinted toward that yesterday, and I would assume that's the case. I think he'll meet with the media here in the next hour or two and announce that. I just think they need, to get back to being a little bit more defense responsible. Last night, Oduya had a couple mishaps, and Seabrook had the puck taken off him in a situation where you normally don't see him do that, and maybe get those guys rolling a little bit more, and just some reliability. And I think, like I said, it's not been a huge deal because that second line produced some points yesterday, but they get the monkey off Kane's back a little bit and get him back in the scoring column. Sharp finally broke. I think he had a 7-game slump yesterday. So nice to get him going again too. But it's the Blackhawks usually play pretty well in these back-to-back games and kind of stick with what they do. I think they'll be pretty fine. And I think Ronto will be a key too. He hasn't had a lot of these games. Yet as a backup, he had so many consistent games, and I think adjusting to a backup, especially with a guy that's still kind of new to the NHL and adjusting, I'll be curious to see how he is. Some time off again. He was pretty good last time, so a couple of different things. But I think they definitely will be motivated since they weren't that pleased with their game last night.
Absolutely, and looking that Wild game is going to be key. But looking at these last couple games here before heading to the Olympics, do you like where this Hawks team is right now? Obviously, they had their little bump in the road there with a couple losses in a row, and then they had the tough stretch here playing Colorado, Anaheim, Boston, and then Detroit. Getting 5 points in 4 games there. So is this team in the right spot where it needs to be heading into the Olympics?
Yeah, I think so. It'll be this next stretch is interesting where they played. Beginning with yesterday's game, it's 9 of their next 10 on the road. So I think it was important to get things going back at home against especially Boston and Anaheim. But this is a big task ahead. They'll have one more home game on Sunday, and then you hit the road for 7 more. So going in that break, you want to have some positive momentum and make sure that you remain in the brace with the Blues. And right now they're neck and neck. I think the Blues have a couple games at hand, but they keep the division race tight and keep that situation as is. And I think you're going to hit a couple roadblocks on the road. You play some pretty good teams and a long road trip, and if you wonder if some of those guys' minds start wandering toward the Olympics, but. The Blackhawks have also played pretty well on the road before. They did pretty well during the circus trip earlier this year and, traditionally been pretty good. So, I think it's a little bit early to be evaluating where they are, especially with this big road trip coming and so many points to be decided in that division to be so tight. I think ideally the Blackhawks, they'd like to keep the division tight and you come out of the Olympics. And I think a lot of teams are in the same boat with, Blues also have 10 guys going to the Olympics and, it'll be interesting to see how a lot of those teams adjust, and I think guys will need to be rested and how a little bit smarter about ice time coming out of that as well.
It's a big game for the Wild tonight as they're in the 8th seed, and we hope the Hawks can get it done. Scott, thank you very much for coming on to today's show, and we hope to have you back on fairly soon.